responds to the Irish famine. So when the Irish were dying because the potato crop failed because of the different kinds of diseases that the potato, I mean, you figure the real problem was that when they adopted the potato from Peru, they liked a particular potato or a few, and they just grew those as opposed to the 70 or 80 different varieties of potatoes that the Peru natives all had available. Instead, the Europeans liked a particular strain of potatoes, just grew those. So when you ended up with a disease attacking that potato, it destroyed the whole crop, right? And so you ended up with a famine. The British actually had plenty of food at the time and could have fed the population of Ireland, but thanks to this guy, they figured this is just nature taking its course, and there were too many Irish anyway, so God just, you get the idea, right? This is nature. Why are we screwing with nature, right? So there you have it. And so this is kind of a evolutionary process of course, when you think of that. Very pessimistic view of famine and disease, a Malthusian catastrophe, etc. Good word. Keep that word in your vocabulary, because he's there. Herbert Spencer really, gives us, here you go, the survival of the fittest. Actually, that expression comes from him and not from Darwin. And when you think of Darwin and the origin of the species, I suppose it's always kind of an odd thing when you look at what's the name of that bar downtown isn't it D Street? What's the name of that bar? Anybody ever go to the bar where they've got the icon of the little chimp, the bigger chimp, the Neanderthal, and then the human? What do they call that one? Not origin of the species, they call it something. Nobody goes to bars? Wow. Sorry. But there is, if it's right across from where Cyrano's used to be. Cyrano's? Okay, forget it. But it seems like it's going the opposite direction. Darwin seemed to think that what was happening was it's just really the vocabulary that he used. That as you're looking at the species, what the heck? I'm not even remembering what he called that. Oh well, human evolution, descent. There you go. So it's like the descent of man. You think that's going downhill, but he means it in the sense that there was this gradual evolution that led to man. So it's kind of an odd word for that. I can't remember what's the name of the bar. Darwin something. The bar in Anchorage. Darwin's Theory? There it is, Darwin's Theory. So that's a bar in Anchorage. Not recommending anyone go. I think actually they have food too. I think I walked in it once just to look at it because it was like, but it's just a typical little run-of-the-mill cafe bar kind of thing, that's all. But on the outside they have the image of that kind of thing. But Nietzsche actually rebels against Darwin's idea of the descent of man, because Darwin is just talking about biological development. And as far as Nietzsche is concerned, it's the evolution of our Geist. Remember Hegel, right? Our spirit. Well, that's really significant. And his one concept that he talks about a lot is the Übermensch. And in fact, my quiz question for you is something to the effect of, do you like, what would you think it would be like being an Übermensch? Something like that. Let me double check. Where do I have? That's the wrong one. There it is. What do you think it would be like living life as an Übermensch? And that's actually a trick question, because theoretically, already, because not only because you're in the class, but because you're a contemporary American, for the most part, right? Yes? By definition, you're an Übermensch as far as I think Nietzsche meant. Now, when we get into the concept of Übermensch, how many of you have heard of Nietzschean? Yes? So that's, I think Star Trek did something with that, and they had a whole bunch of supermen that, were not only smart, but also genetically, super strong and all sorts of things. And they were bullies. Absolutely, bullies. And if you tie that into his concept of morality, he hated the concept of morality that you get from the Jewish tradition. By the way, some of his writing on the Jewish tradition strikes me as, wow, where did Hitler get some of the expressions he used? That's really very clear, right? And there's a big argument over, well, was Nietzsche anti-Semite? Well, the main clue to say that he wasn't was that his sister Elizabeth married a man who was absolutely an anti-Semite, and he broke up with his sister because of her husband. Now, was it because of her husband's anti-Semitic views? Not sure. He might not have just liked them. I don't know. But in any case, he didn't go back to see his sister until he had his stroke, or he collapsed in Turin, and for a while he was in a hospital there. But then they moved him back home, and he was with his mother and his sister, and so he once again was with his sister, but he wasn't sane by then. He never really recovered from that. My personal feeling is that when he tried to interfere with the driver and the horse, the problem apparently was there was a man beating his horse, who wasn't behaving, pulling the cart. If you saw the Irvin Yalom movie that I suggested over the weekend, there's a scene that he's coming out to the wagon to get on the wagon to go home with Dr. Brewer, and Dr. Brewer's kind of confused because the man that's driving the wagon was having trouble with the horse, and he was, arguing with the horse. You know how you do with horses, settle down, that kind of thing. And he comes running over and tries to interfere and gets knocked down. I do think that's what happened. He got knocked down by the horse. That really happened. It's just not as the movie depicts it. But the idea that you get knocked down the horse. How many people have you known that have fallen down on the street, cobblestone street, and hit their head and never really recovered from that? That happens. So I have a feeling that was part of the problem with Nietzsche. But so, was he an anti-Semite? Actually, I don't think we can be absolutely sure of that either way. It's a big fight over that. And I think what happens is you've got a lot of people, Hitler, for example, who ordered his Schutzstaffel to carry a copy of Thus Spake Zarathustra. So I want an image of Hitler and the bust of Nefertiti. Is that going to give us the whole? Yeah, so there's the famous photo of Hitler looking at the bust of Nietzsche. That bust is still there, by the way. It's in the house where Elizabeth kept Nietzsche the last couple of years of his life. Kind of showed him off, even though he was crazy, you know. Sisters, you know how they are. And Hitler, of course, came and visited the house, and so there was a big photo op. And in fact, Elizabeth gave Hitler Nietzsche's walking stick as a present to Hitler, which he accepted. That's on video. You can see videos of her giving that to him, I think. Sure. So clearly there's a respect that Hitler had for Nietzsche as a philosopher, and insisting that the Schutzstaffel, his SS, carry in their breast pocket not a copy of the New Testament, which, and at the time I was in the army, it was still a thing that the chaplains would hand out little camouflaged New Testaments to you if you wanted one. You didn't have to take one, but of course I took one, and all. And put it in your pocket, and there's all kinds of stories about people being saved by the bullet hitting the New Testament and not killing the person. Most famous, I think, was Teddy Roosevelt, right? When he was shot by an attempted assassin, the bullet hit the Bible that he had in his pocket, and did hit his chest, but didn't penetrate very deep, so he survived. The famous line after that was, "A dictionary would have done as well." Thank you, Teddy Roosevelt. Right? But in any case, I certainly would imagine that Hitler got the impression that Nietzsche was an anti-Semite. And if you were reading the genealogy of morality, he refers to the Jewish religion's morality as a slave morality. And he contrasts it with the Greek morality. Now, if you remember when we first started, I showed the video of Arnold, Schwarzenegger as Conan the Barbarian, the musical. Right? You remember? That was absolutely something you couldn't forget because it was so ridiculous. Right? And I asked the question, how did morality go from this, where what was good was, killing your enemies, seeing the women and children run before you. Yes, that is good, says the group sitting around the fire. That was the morality of the ancient Greeks. I mean, if you read Homer and you think about Achilles, why was he such a god, really, for everyone else? Because he's a big brute that could kill anybody he wanted. That was what made you special. That kind of strength, and according to Nietzsche's analysis of this, the idea of what's good comes out of these good people, like Achilles or Hercules, or the ones that are gods, essentially, because it's their intuition. I want to do this, right? That's how you find out what's good. That's what they want to do, right? They do what they want to do, and these are the aristoi in Greek, the best, right? So how do you get the difference between the good and evil, or the good and bad? You would get it because you've got the aristoi, who are good, and the scum of the earth. Everyone else, those are the bad, right? They're the weak, they're the herd. everybody else, right? And the Jewish morality favors those individuals. And of course, out of the Jewish tradition comes the God of love, which is Jesus Christ, says Nietzsche. And Jesus Christ